turn up the heat. If you look at the really important parts, what is organizing our atmosphere, what is organizing our oceans, then you end up with, say, 24 of tipping elements.
And which ones would you say, just a few ones, which are the most important ones to think about?
In the short term, circulation patterns in the atmosphere. So if you have, as we see already, a distortion of the jet stream, this brings more extreme events, because the jet stream is driven by the temperature difference between the Arctic, cool air, and the mild air in the moderate, in the temperate zone actually. And since the Arctic is warming 3 times as fast as the rest of the northern hemisphere, this temperature difference becomes smaller and smaller, and the jet stream becomes more sluggish and is forming these huge Rossby waves who become stationary. So it's fascinating physics behind it. Now in the medium term, it's the tropical coral reefs, the Great Barrier Reef will probably perish till the end of the century, and the Amazon rainforest, if you deforest, say, 20% or 25%, simply by slash and burn and so on, of the Amazon rainforest, then the system probably will collapse into a savanna. And in the really long term, it is the ice sheets. Greenland ice sheet is 2,000 to 3,000 meters thick, and it has survived millions of years, of course. But once it starts to melt on the surface, say by a few meters, the more you melt, the further you go down into warmer air. That means it will melt even faster. Also the surface becomes rougher, it's absorbing more sunlight, it's a self-amplifying process. But the sleeping giant really is the East Antarctic ice sheet. And it holds the water equivalent of 50 to 60 meters. So if the East Antarctic ice sheet would become destabilized, this would actually, in the end, lead to a sea level rise, which is beyond any type of management. That will determine the fate of this planet.
This is a science with huge amount of uncertainties. And how sure are we with the science around tipping points?
We can write down the history of planet Earth through the ice cores, through the sediments and so on. So we know what happened under what conditions. Looking back into the Earth's past, we are much more confident that the things we talk about and we simulate with our computers are actually the real thing.
Just recently, you and some other leading scientists in the field, you came out with an even more alarming report, where you write about how some of these systems are actually interconnected.
Yeah. If the Greenland ice sheet, for example, starts to melt down, will this be more or less ignored by the other tipping elements? The Gulf Stream is actually formed initially by the sinking of salty and cold water, dense water, down 4,000 meters deeper. Now, if you dilute that water through the melting, it is not heavy enough anymore to sink down. Ultimately, it will stop the deep water formation. Once you start this machinery to collapse somewhere, it could be a self-amplifying process which would provide extra heat and extra warming to the planet. And this in turn could, for example, instigate the collapse of further forests and so on. We cannot exclude for sure right now that something like a self-amplifying greenhouse process exists on Earth. And if that happens, it would actually kill our civilization. But it is a drama in which we are, and we don't know yet whether it will turn out as a comedy or a tragedy.